Welcome to MMA Dogs. My name is Hector, and I want to thank you for tuning in. Now, our clients get to see this video first, so a big thank you to all of our clients. And let's dive right into it. We have UFC Fight Night 40, Brown versus Silva. And that is one hell of a fight. I can't wait for the main event. And just looking at the card from top to bottom, there are some really, really nice fights, and I can't wait to dive into them. Three things I got to cover, though, before we go into them is the first thing, you never want to bet more than you can afford to lose. Second thing, always want to check your local laws. And then third, much respect to all the women and all the men that step into the octagon. Right now, I'm going to break it down and say what I think about certain fighters that may not be seen as nice or friendly, but the job isn't to do that. It's to pick winners and look for opportunities to invest and make money. So here we go, baby. Go to the website mmadawgs.com. You'll see all the stats: 5-star, 4-star, 3 stars, all the plays, everything broken down. So to start off the night, we have a very interesting matchup here. We have Anthony Lapsley versus Albert Tumenov. And this is going to be a betting pick here right off the bat. With Lapsley, oh man, this guy, he's just, we know what we're going to get out of him. He has hit his ceiling. And with Tumenov, I firmly believe that he has yet to show us the best of what he has to offer. And I believe that he has gotten the octagon jitters out of the way. But first, let's talk a little bit about Lapsley. So 0-1 in the UFC, a decision loss to Jason High. High looked good in that fight, but like I said, Lapsley, I mean, he trains at American Top Team. That's where he trained at for this camp anyways, and his jiu-jitsu is solid, but he's not well-rounded enough. I don't see the full, complete MMA game other than the jiu-jitsu, like I said. And he won't be able to get the takedown on Tumenov. That's what I believe here. And on the feet, he's going to get busted up. So if he can't get the takedown, the fight's going to be on the feet, and Tumenov is going to bust him up. And with to top it all off, to boot the whole thing off, he missed weight. So that is a huge red flag. That is a big old man. Let's turn this around and bet the farm on Tumenov. Now with Tumenov, he's also 0-1 in the UFC, but for his debut, he went down to Brazil, fought a possessed Alcantara, and he lost a split decision. So Tumenov comes into the UFC, stock very, very high, because, of course, he's a Russian. The Russians are looking, unbelievable in the UFC. And Sambo experts coming in that basically have, all the MMA experience that we want, that we need them to have. But, stepping onto the big stage with the big lights and the just the big stage in the UFC, and to have to go down to Brazil and fight, I mean that is a huge task, and he lost the split. Obviously we want the W, but he didn't get it. But that's okay, because here minus 250, minus 260. Wow, I really love that price, and I expect Tumenov to finish Lapsley, and at worst win a decision. So Tumenov for the win. And we'll move right along here. This next fight features two fighters that I'm just, this one I'm kind of shaking my head at, and that is Justin Salis versus Ben Wall. Salis, 2-2 in the UFC. He's not a good fighter. I am not a fan of his. He's inconsistent. He wins one, loses one, wins one, loses one, and it's time for him to win one. He does train at Grudge. And he does look like he's coming in shape for this fight. Wall, 0-1 in the UFC. But he made his debut at 170. 12 days notice against Garcia. so that was not a good idea for him. But now he's back at 155 because his fight's at lightweight, and he did train. He has been training here in San Diego at Alliance. So very interesting matchup here. I do believe if I have to make a pick here, it is going to be Salis that wins the fight by a grinding up against the cage decision, maybe a 29-28 type of decision. But this is one of the ones that do not bet. I tried finding reasons to convince myself why I should bet on Ben Wall, and I couldn't find enough. Just doing the homework and the tape study, I just couldn't bring myself to make it a betting pick or bet any type of money on it. So the pick is Salis by decision, but it's a do not bet. Do not bet. This next fight is very interesting. So this will be the last fight on the Fight Pass, and that is Manny Gamburyan versus Nick Lentz. Now, with Gamburyan, we know what we're going to get. He's a solid guy. He probably won't get finished in this fight, and he'll ride it out to a decision. He throws heavy hands, but they don't connect. He just throws him out there like a wild pitcher, but he's just throwing it out there and doesn't connect. He does look to be in great shape for this fight. It does look like he is taking this fight very seriously, because I think he knows this is it for him. If he doesn't win this fight, he's gone. And he trains with all those beasts in L.A., Ronda Rousey. I mean, it's just some good people he trains with, but he's on the back end of his career now. And with Nick Lentz, we have a guy who at 145 has looked very, very good. In his fight against Hecran Diaz down in Brazil, he very much impressed me. And then against Mendez, he hung in there when people didn't think he would. And he's working with Dolce, so he's taking his career very seriously. I do like Lentz in this fight, and there is a particular bet that I really like for this particular fight, and we'll go over that. But for the pick, it'll definitely be Lentz, and that'll be by decision. Lentz by decision, of course. And then moving right along. Oh, and might as well touch on it while I'm on the subject. The bet is going to be Gamburyan Lentz over 2.5 rounds. So the over on Gamburyan Lentz, and we'll go into that once we get to the bets. So here we go. Johnny Eduardo versus Eddie Wineland. Now, Eduardo, 1-1 in the UFC, has been out for 2 years. 2 years. He's 35 years old. He's got very good striking, good Muay Thai. Trains at Novo Niao, a Muay Thai coach over there. Very good striking. But he's taking on Eddie Wineland, who is on top of the world at the 135-pound bantamweight division. And Wineland's only 29 years old. The only concern here is when a guy is favored so heavily over another, the heavily favored guy can take the other fighter lightly. I don't think that'll be the case here, and even if he does, I don't think Eduardo can pull off the upset. But I look for reasons why I should bet Eduardo and why this guy's a live dog and why he might bite and this and that, but I just couldn't see it. And the price tag on Wineland is ridiculous right now, so that'll be a complete pass. The pick will be Wineland. I do think it'll go to decision, so perhaps one of the prop bets on Eduardo by bond points or something like that. But I just don't have any interest in this fight. 2 years out for Eduardo, and then Wineland, having such an easy target. I would rather I'm going to stay away from this fight altogether. But Wineland will be the pick. And then for the next fight, not enough information on this Cabal guy in the UFC to lay that ridiculous minus 400 plus price tag. But the fight is Cabal versus Cummings. Cabal 1-0 in the UFC against Mitchell, who is a formidable opponent. Cabal is a jiu-jitsu ace, so on the ground, very, very good. Of course, training his stand-up at Novo União, training his overall game over there with some good guys. And Cummings, 1-0 in the UFC also, and he missed weight against Mina, and the fight got canceled. And now I believe the UFC is feeding him to the wolves. So against Cabal, like I said, he's very, very good. If you look at Cummings, though, if you watch his fights, he's not a bad fighter. He's only lost to some good guys. So this makes another unbettable fight, because last thing we need is a lay minus 400 on Cabal and then have, some ridiculous outcome to the fight, some fluke, something crazy happen. I wanted to bet Cabal, but ultimately I'm going to pass on him. So Cabal for the pick. I believe he'll go to a decision. I don't think he'll get the finish. If he does, of course, I think it'll be by submission. But just a total pass on that fight. And next one. Oh, this will be a good one here. Flyweights, very evenly matched. We have Horiguchi versus Montague. Now, Horiguchi comes in with a ton of momentum, a ton of excitement, a lot of hype behind this guy. He's 1-0 in the UFC. He's very technical, very fast, very well-rounded. Like I said, very evenly matched. And with Montague, he was one of the guys that a lot of people wanted to see in the UFC. They brought him in right away against Dodson. He lost, got knocked out, so he's 0-1 in the UFC. But he, too, is very well-rounded. And when a guy is coming off a loss like Montague's, they usually take the fight very, very seriously. They fight above the public understanding, or above the public opinion. So I like Montague here for the upset. And I try to find reasons to bet on him again, but ultimately, I believe it's too evenly matched. I was going back and forth between him and Horiguchi, but I'm going to go with Montague by decision, but it's going to be a do not bet. This next one, Ed Herman versus Rafael Natal, Sapo Natal. And with Ed Herman, what does Michael Bisping call him? The ginger ninja, the ninja ginger. With Ed Herman, ultimately, the bottom line is I think his best days are behind him, and what he offers now won't be enough to beat Rafael Natal most of the time. They are evenly matched. The odds reflect that. Herman, of course, can pull off the upset. It would be a small upset, but still pull off the upset. But with Natal, we got a guy who has excellent jiu-jitsu. He's got good wrestling. His striking is now decent, but his striking defense is bad, and his cardio is bad, and his chin is terrible. So we've got a guy in Natal who has all the tools to win the fight. But will he? It's just like, oh man, this guy just barely squeaks by. I mean, I remember watching him fight against Michael Kuiper, and that was a fight that I bet Natal heavy. I remember being in Vegas watching him fight. Actually, Ed Herman fought on that card too. He fought Clifford Starks. And I bet both these guys, and both fights, I was just hanging on for dear life. Come on, these guys, please win the fight. And here they are fighting each other. And I believe Natal will win the fight, and maybe a 29-28, something like that. Yeah, definitely a 29-28, maybe a split decision for Natal. But I do favor Natal. As far as the bet goes, there's better opportunities on the card. I looked for enough reasons to bet Natal. Unfortunately, he barely missed it. So, and then the other thing is Ed Herman's coming in great shape. Ed Herman is in very good shape. Once again, I think he realizes, just like Gamburian, that his back is against the wall. So it's a pass on Natal, but Natal for the win. Here we go to the main card. So this will be on Fox Sports 1. And here we go. This is a very fun fight here. We got Chris Cariaso versus Luis Smolka. Cariaso, very well-rounded vet. He's fought the best guys at bantamweight, the best guys at flyweight. He's fought some very, very good guys. So we know what we're going to get out of Cariaso. With Smolka, 1-0 in the UFC. Very impressive UFC debut. Quickly improving, which is very exciting to see a guy like this. He's very tall. He's 5'9". Cariaso's only 5'3", and he's going to have a big reach advantage too. So just watching Smolka fight, I'm very impressed. He beat Alp, and that was a very impressive win for him. So I do like Smolka here. He is going to be a betting pick. I do think he'll win a decision. And Smolka for the win. And we have a interesting heavyweight matchup here. We have Soa Palelei versus Ruan Potts. With Palelei, we have a guy who is 2-0 already in the UFC since his return. You know, he's 36 years old, so it's very interesting to see this guy with the resurgence here late in his fighting career. He's got big knockout power, big heavy guy, powerful guy. You know, just under the 265 limit. Heavy, powerful, but very slow with bad cardio. And like I said, he's 36 years old, so that's a concern. His fight IQ is not good. And the Krylov fight, you know, just watch the Krylov fight. That was a mess of a fight. So not very, very eager to bet this guy. And then Ruan Potts making his UFC debut. He's got a judo background. He's got a decent base. But you know, the guys he's fought in Africa, it's just like, man, you know, one of the guys he beat twice, lost to once. And just watching those fights, it's just like, it's a local type of fight. You know, it's not the UFC top of the world heavyweight type of fight. So he has finished all his fights. He's 8-1, but like I said, the competition's not good. And he's training with the Blackzilians now. One of the coaches, I forget which one, was saying that he wish he had more time with Potts. And that tells me that he's not quite there. And so I have to go with Palelei by knockout. The big, heavy guy, you know. So Palelei for the pick, but do not bet with those ridiculous odds and even the I mean, just a total passive fight. And we'll see what this Potts guy is all about, but Palelei for the pick. And this other next fight here is very interesting. Neil Magny versus Tim Means. Magny's 2-2 in the UFC. In my opinion, Magny's still developing as an MMA fighter. He's well-rounded with a good wrestling base, and now his striking is looking okay. But he needs to continue to learn how to use his reach advantage. I'm not sold on him yet. I think this will be an opportunity for him to sell me and display the ability to use his body, you know, and his reach. And with Means, we got a guy who's 2-2 in the UFC also, taking this fight on short notice, back at 170 pounds where he belongs. This guy has no business fighting at 155. And, you know, he can be out-wrestled like Castillo and Masvidal did to him. But once again, that was at 155. And I think that took too much out of him. So he belongs at 170. And, you know, striking is very aggressive, comes forward. So he lives up to his nickname, the Dirty Bird. He's just a scrappy guy. So it's a close fight. I am going to go with Tim Means. The odds are way too steep on him, though. So Tim Means by decision, but do not bet. And here we go. We're getting down to the last three. And I really like one of the guys coming up here. We got Daron Cruickshank versus Erick Koch. So basically, a striker with a karate background against a striker with a karate background. And one of these strikers with a karate background has developed his MMA game more, though. And Cruickshank, 4-2 in the UFC, but he hasn't beat anybody on Koch's level. He really has not. With Koch, 3-2 in the UFC, losses to Poirier and Lamas at 145 pounds. He's back up to 155. Much better weight for him. And that's where he belongs. With, you know, training at Rufus Sport with Anthony Pettis, both Pettis brothers, Ben Askren, just a bunch of good guys, excellent coaches, and I really see this guy moving up the 155 ladder. In this fight, he doesn't have to worry about being out-wrestled, so it's going to be all him on the feet. I see either a 30-27 decision for him or him getting the finish. So I really like Koch here. Even with the big price tag, I like him a lot there. This next fight, oh man, this is another one. Just a lot of the fights on this card are who is going to rise up to the occasion here, who is going to continue, who's going to show that their last fight was not who they really are as a fighter. And the next fight pretty much sums up the whole card, or the majority of the card, and that's Lorenz Larkin versus Constantinos Philippou. So we got a Muay Thai fighter basically here against a boxer, and with Larkin, he just always wants to set things up where, you know, he's got these clean strikes, like something that you would see out of a movie, but, you know, it's not. MMA is not something like you would see on a big screen or something. You know, it's after his performance with Tavares, he's not worthy of a bet. He really isn't. Even if you are siding with Larkin, I don't see how you could bet him. He is extremely inactive. Like I said, he does have the flashy type of striking and stuff, but he's just too inactive, and I can't recommend a bet on him, even though he should win the fight. Now with Philippou, here's a guy that's got one foot in the octagon and the other foot in the New York City Police building. I mean, this guy, he's talking about, you know, he's ready to take the New York City Police test, and he wants a career in law enforcement. And then he shows up at the weigh-ins looking like, you know, looking like he just eats, sleeps, and breathes training, dieting. I mean, this guy looks incredibly in incredible shape, and I would not be surprised if he shows up after 2 straight losses, back against the wall, and he says, you know what, one last hurrah here and see what I can do. He probably, anything can happen, but he shouldn't be too worried about the takedown. So the fight will take, you know, place on its feet, and the price tag on Lorenz Larkin is just way too high. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. And so I'm going to pass on this fight. I'm not going to be surprised if Philippou pulls up the upset. Not enough confidence in Philippou to bet him, though. And Lorenz Larkin should win the fight. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Damned. I mean, it's just one of those freaking fights that are frustrating. So Larkin for the win by decision. And but it's a do not bet. And last but not least, we got Matt the Immortal Brown against Erick Indio Silva. So we got a durable, gritty scrapper against an explosive prospect. But is he really a prospect anymore? No, he's not. It's time for Erick Silva to shit or get off the pot. With Brown, we got a guy who's on a 6-fight win streak. 5 of those 6 wins by knockout TKO. 3 of those 6 opponents were very solid fighters. He's at home. The one fight that I can say, hey, you know what, this is what I believe this fight is going to look like, is a Jordan Meehan fight. And I believe that Erick Silva at this point for this fight, after this camp, is better than Jordan Meehan and will possess a different type of look. But it is comparable in the sense that I believe that there are going to be points in the fight where it looks like one guy rocks the other, or one guy rocks the other, the other guy rocks the other. So kind of back and forth. And one more thing to add about Brown is he knows that he cannot afford to get submitted in this fight. So he went to Vegas to train with Drysdale, Robert Drysdale, one of the top jiu-jitsu guys in the United States, to work his submission defense here. Before taking on Erick Silva, who, in my opinion, is in the best shape that I've seen him in, training very hard at X Gym with all those great coaches in Brazil. And like I said, it's real simple for him. It's time for him to perform. He's no longer a prospect. You know, it's time for him to show how it's going to be done. And he has all the physical tools to win, but he just needs to get there mentally. He's got 9 career wins by submission and Brown has 9 career losses by submission. So it's very interesting here. I do believe, that Silva will finish Brown before the start of the 3rd round. So I'm going to go with Silva inside the distance. I really think he's going to win it. I wouldn't recommend betting the minus 200 plus on Silva. There's an opportunity to bet the prop, the inside the distance. If if the limits aren't enough, you can always have multiple books. The line will be available on multiple books, so if you guys can figure it out if you're smart. And so I like Silva inside the distance here. I do have a lot of respect for Brown, so I'll go over the bet setup that I have here for this particular fight. I feel like there's something else I wanted to mention about Silva. Oh, I know what it was. The fight that he had with John Fitch down in Brazil was, in my opinion, too much too soon, and the UFC could have built Silva up a little bit more slowly, like they could have done with Ryan Bader when they fed him to John Jones, like they could have done with let's say Phil Davis when they fed him to Rashad Evans. These guys, fighting is a very what's the word for it? Like very sensitive type of sport. It's more than a sport, because when you lose a fight and you feel the domination that an opponent can have over you, for a lot of guys, like I said, mentally it can break them for a while. And I remember Lyoto Machida's dad said that after Lyoto Machida got knocked out, it would take him, I can't remember how many years he said it would take him to recover from that knockout loss. So it's more than a sport. It's a mind, body, spiritual connection type of thing where it has to be treated very, very carefully. So with these guys, you just go in there and get their socks rocked off. It's just like, man. But you know what? That's a fight game, and it is what it is. So 5-star picks, there are none, unfortunately for us. 4-star picks, there's 2. We're going to go with Koch and Tumenov. 3-star picks, there's a bunch. Smolka, Gamburi, Lentz over 2.5 rounds. Cariaso, Smolka over 2.5 rounds. Salis, Wall over 2.5 rounds. And Horiguchi, Montague over 2.5 rounds. So let's go down to the bets. So MMA Dogs bets. Here are my bets. 1 unit equals 1% of the bankroll. 4 units to win 3.10 on Tumenov at minus 250 and Koch at minus 375. So that gives us minus 129. Like I said, 4 units to win 3.10. Next bet, 2 units to win 1.77. Gamburi, Lentz over 2.5 rounds at minus 290. And Cariaso, Smolka over 2.5 rounds at minus 250. That gives us minus 113. So 2 units to win 1.77. 2 units to win 1.43 on Smolka at minus 140. So 2 units to win 1.43 on Smolka. And the next fight is Gamburi, Lentz over 2.5 rounds. Like I said, at minus 290. Plus, this time we're going to team it up with Salis and Wall over 2.5 rounds at minus 230. So that gives us minus 108. We'll do 1 unit to win 0.93. And a few more here. 1 unit to win 0.87 on Horiguchi, Montague over 2.5 rounds at minus 115. So that is 1 unit to win 0.87. Now this is an interesting little setup I got here. It's 3 units to win 2.38 on Silva inside the distance at minus 126. And 1.32 units to win 3 units on Brown inside the distance at plus 227. Now, if Silva wins inside the distance, then there's going to be a profit of 1.06. And if Brown wins inside the distance, then there's going to be it's going to break even. That bet will break even. And then one last one, just because it was the odds are too good. And this is a quarter unit, so 0.25 units to win 1.09. Silva by knockout TKO at plus 435. So Silva by knockout TKO, a quarter unit, 0.25 units to win 1.09 units. And with that one, now, most common judgment would say, hey, you know what, he's going to win by submission. But the way that Matt Brown comes forward and the way that Erick Silva throws his strikes, and man, if Erick Silva catches Brown, he may not need to go down to the ground. You know, he may just hit him with something big and then hit him on the side of the head for a couple shots, and the ref might jump in. So that is a big prop, and it's a tiny little bet anyway. So the total as a whole is 14.57 units to win 14.57 units. So very interestingly, it worked out that way. And that does it. The homework is done. Now it is time to put it to the test, and I can't wait. So check out the website, mmadawgs.com. I guarantee that there will be profit made on these bets, or I will refund you the money that you paid for the service, and I will give you the next week for free. So I'll be working for free, and of course, nobody likes to work for free. So, we're putting our best foot forward here, trying to make as much money as possible. And here we go, baby. I can't wait. I hope you guys have yourself a good weekend, and I hope to talk to you guys real soon.